So this weekend just gone, we had the opportunity to test out some of the upcoming Surf and Storm update coming to Planetside 2. The main focus of said tests was looking at the upcoming underwater combat mechanics and the bases that are meant to house those fights. And after getting some time in myself, and after having a good, long, hard think about the fighting there, I've got some thoughts for sure. So, g'day there once again viewers, your mate Kamikaze78 here, and today we're going to be diving below the waves and having a look at what submersible combat looks like for Planetside 2, and whether or not it has the depth to attract meaningful engagements. So, out of the gate here, the underwater combat updates that we've tested thus far have been one polarizing as hell experience for me. You know, there's no denying that there are aspects of this new field of combat that I liked, and on first impressions, I found myself having a really good time here. But as the early honeymoon period wore off, and I have to say, it started wearing off by the end of the playtest session I attended, it became pretty clear to me that a lot of the actual game gets stripped away to allow underwater combat to happen. I'll explain more soon because I know that sounds a little bit vague. Before we get any further, I believe that there has already been some confirmation that a second playtest will take place this coming weekend after actioning some of the feedback and fixing the bugs on the test server as it stands. So take this as a moment in time review of what we got to use in the last playtest and expect there to be some further changes in the next one. Capiche? Capiche. Alright, I want to go over some of the mechanics firstly that are unique to the underwater theatre of war, because there's a ton of stuff here that really changes what we know from the main game. First things first, yes, you can now use the majority of small arms infantry weapons underwater. This includes assault rifles, light machine guns, sniper rifles, shotguns, scout rifles, pistols, max AI weaponry, basically everything an infantryman can carry that actually shoots something, with a few exceptions. Those exceptions being rocket launchers, underbarrel attachments including underbarrel shotguns, anti-material rifles, the thumper, and grenades. I might have missed something here or there, so please feel free to add any additional ones that I have missed to the comment section down below. As you can see, there's very little anti-vehicle capability available in this space, which isn't the end of the world considering how little vehicle presence there is down here under the water, but it's something worth noting. Now obviously, one of the bigger questions many have had surrounding the ability to now use all small arms weaponry underwater is, well, what about the amphibious weapons now? Are they still even worth using, or have they just been completely power creeped out of the game? Well, all of your standard small arms weapons that aren't classified as amphibious in nature have significant drag attached to them when fired underwater. So much so to the point where all weapons, no matter their inherited muzzle velocity, have an effective range of around 30 meters. 40 if you aim higher and sort of, you know, let the drag fall onto your opponent, but you get the drift. The muzzle velocity here will dictate how fast a round fired from said gun reaches that maximum 30 meter range, but beyond that, they just drop like a rock. And just to be clear, yeah, the same goes for sniper rifles as well. In other words, they're basically useless under here. The amphibious weapons don't carry this penalty and have an effective range of, well, what you would expect out of most weapons. Keep that in mind going forward here. As far as other gear is concerned, such as deployables and tools, there's some interesting distinctions here. Mines, C4 ammo packs, and maybe shield regeneration fields are fair game, but things like mana turrets are not. However, and this was probably the most interesting discovery for me, abilities like, say, the heavy assault overshields and the infiltrator cloaks are not available to be used under here, which I have to say is something that did catch me off guard considerably. Abilities such as light assault jump jets and combat medic nano regen devices are still fair game, so there's some abilities that have been distinctly turned off and on here with some sort of gameplay objective in mind from the developers. Just worth highlighting. And the last bit of gear or mechanics related info we have to go over quickly here is the diver propulsion device, available to all classes minus the light assault. This ability works very much like, say, the drifter jump jets. It allows you to gain a lot of forward momentum quickly and can also be used to gain height when you aren't holding down any of your directional WASD keys. So if you happen to fat finger your exit vehicle key now off your boat, you have an answer to get out of that sticky situation by using this thing to climb back up to the surface and reboard your vehicle. So obviously there's a lot going on here, all amounting to what is essentially a very sort of stripped back play space that eliminates a lot of the variables that you would normally see in other engagements in the game. And I have to be honest, at a surface level, I don't consider that to be such a bad thing. In fact, I kinda like it. Call me a boring old sweatlord here, but there are times where I just want to enjoy the Planetside gunplay without having an ESF come along and farm my brains out. I don't have to worry about heshing from a distance. I don't have to worry about max suits as much. The underwater combat arenas are just kinda perfect for focusing on some good old infantry versus infantry combat, just in a slightly different rule set as far as movement and other things are concerned. Oshur, despite its problems, has long been a continent that best caters to, if anything, large-scale combined arms warfare where massive armor zergs clash, and it's probably the best continent in the game for construction. But infantry players, myself included, always feel a touch starved when this continent rolls around. The overall design of the underwater play spaces, well, at the very least the intent of the design behind these play spaces, seems to try to fill that void. Hell, the lacking presence of heavy assault shields and infiltrator cloaking even removes some of the variables from the normal Planetside infantry experience and garners more of a, I guess you could call it, core experience that you would find in other shooters, something that places even more value on general positioning and straight aim and weaponry control. The water combat within its current form is an extremely bare bones version of the game, which has the pros that we just listed above, but I do worry about its longevity to keep me engaged in its current form. However, before we get into that, I have to highlight this little moment here that we caught on stream when we were testing out the update. For the first time ever in this game, I actually used a Valkyrie to door gun out of its rumble seat while in the underwater fight, and it worked like a charm. It kind of felt like I was in a chopper gunner kill streak from Call of Duty Black Ops, and I have to say that it was a pretty fun moment to enjoy that I haven't experienced anywhere else in this game to this date. The underwater combat arena does produce some unique moments that you can't get anywhere else realistically in the game, such as these, which again, I enjoyed for the majority of the duration of the playtest. But anyway, back on track here. As I said before, the bare bones nature of this play space, while it achieves some long sought after variety on the continent of Oshur, for example, is also the core of some of the problems that potentially robs the play space from any kind of replay value. Allow me to elaborate here. The way in which the everyday weapons are balanced as it stands makes it so that it's quite frankly just not even viable using them. If the everyday weapons were the only weapons in the equation, and everyone was forced to use them, then the issues would be less accented here because, well, everyone would need to be on that level playing field and need to close the distance. But we obviously have amphibious weapons to consider here as well, and with their effective range, it doesn't matter that they sport a quote-unquote less than average performance as far as damage per second is concerned, which is, once again, how these amphibious weapons have been balanced. If you can't be countered at all because your effective range is miles apart from your opponent's, then the argument of which weapon has the better DPS is irrelevant. One weapon simply doesn't have the capability to engage in the first place. As soon as someone brings an amphibious rifle to any sort of engagement underwater, you are slowly going to have a cascading effect of players all just switching to these amphibious weapons to be competitive again, and what you get there is a very one-dimensional gameplay loop. The irony here is that the underwater areas are clearly designed for infantry combat first and foremost, so a lot of the elements of the game aren't a factor here, which is honestly okay. Again, I just praise the underwater combat environments for having that intent of giving infantry a bit more of a confined play space. Having some infantry-centric play spaces is great for the game, but when you siphon all of the complexity and depth out of the side of the game you are trying to appease to with that space, then you're going to have a problem, which is where we currently stand with these play spaces. Now, don't get me wrong, as I said before, it's an infantry-centric environment on Oshur, which is something I think the continent has drastically needed for a while, but it comes at the cost of a lot that makes the infantry combat in Planetside a little deeper mechanically, which is why we all stick around. We stick around to master that mechanical skill and that understanding of the infantry gunplay of Planetside. So some additional tweaking here and there might make it a more interesting space to play in. Personally, I think extending the effective range of the standard primary weapons is going to go a long way. I also think that maybe increasing the movement speed a touch will also make the space feel a little bit less sluggish to play in, and will also allow for, more reaction times to find cover in these environments. I know that there are already some plans to rethink the balance around standard everyday weapons as it stands, but as I said, I think a pass on the movement side of things underwater will also help to make the gameplay down here a little bit more engaging. But now I want to hear from you guys in the comment section down below. What are your thoughts on the underwater combat side of Planetside 2? Do you think there's room for improvement here? Did you enjoy it out of the gate, or do you think that this is a giant waste of time and just shouldn't be even in the pipeline? Let me know down below, guys. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to backhand the like button. It goes a long way to supporting the channel. And if you're new here, well, consider backhanding that subscribe button whilst you're at it, as it keeps you up to date with all things we do in the long run, including live streams. And if you want to support us even further, hey, consider a channel membership, guys. It goes a long way and it helps us to keep churning out content as fast as we can. Once again, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Peace out, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Take care, guys. Have a good one.